Good afternoon, everyone. So excited that everyone took the time out of their schedules to attend our first Lunch and Learn. Even though it's at the end of the year, we have some exciting information to give you guys. Super excited for those who are online joining us. Thank you so much. We hope that this Lunch and Learn is something that you can definitely take home and apply to your practices and your businesses, and we're excited that you're here. Many of you know Miss Marni Blythe, a business consultant from Full Pocket Coaching. For those of you who don't, there is in your workbook her full bio. She is an amazing ball of fire, very sweet, positive energy. We are excited about what she has to bring and offer. The information that is coming to you is super vital, and we hope that you take it in. And at this time, we're going to have Marni come on up. Thank you so much.
Yay, excellent. All right, I'm going to just go ahead. Hi, everybody out there. I'm going to invite in Miss Sybil, and welcome. So glad to have everybody here this morning. Thank you so much to the Chamber for inviting me to present this information. I see Miss Sybil. Hi, Sybil. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I see Tara is connecting to audio. So for you at home, I will do my best to interact with you as well. We have an amazing room full of guests here today, so I'm going to try to split my time a little bit between all of you. So if you do have questions that are watching online, just go ahead and feel free to pop them in the chat, and Miss Shanita will be happy to help you. Miss Sybil, can you see my screen okay with the presentation? Just give me a thumbs up if you can. Awesome. Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to jump in. Okay, so really quick, I just wanted to tell you all a little bit about me. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I actually started my first business when I was 18 years old in New York City while concurrently going to New York University. My background's originally in corporate marketing and communications, but my love is always been to be an entrepreneur. My father, my grandfather, my great grandfather, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, so it's definitely in my soul. So I wanted to introduce you guys very quickly to, I have something that I've developed. It's called the Full Pocket Method. And it's really some of the best business systems that I've seen in the world that are used in much, much larger organizations that I have kind of repurposed and reimagined for the small business owner, which includes everything from helping you with automation of systems, being able to clone yourself in a way where we teach you sort of how to delegate and elevate your business, how you really set the foundation, and then that really helps you to continue with your business in terms of being able to hire the right staff, retain the right people, not only grow your ROI, but also have a fun-loving environment where we have this thing called work-life integration. Notice how I didn't say balance as we were talking about just a few minutes ago. I kind of have gotten to a point in my life where I'm like, don't think the balance thing is really attainable or achievable, but we can integrate. Sometimes we have a little more life, sometimes we have a little bit more work, and we just learn how to kind of roll and let the ocean waves just kind of flow in and flow out. But that's another presentation. Okay, so my core values with my company, and we're going to talk about this today because this is really, really important. So first and foremost, servant leadership. If you do not serve first, then there's really not a whole lot left, in my opinion. So we serve first, and that is always our goal, whether it's doing a lunch and learn here at the Chamber, whether that's serving. I'm also officially a small business counselor at Wake Tech for 5 hours a week. So that's an amazing thing. And then, of course, I have Full Pocket. Integrity, which to me is doing the right thing when nobody is watching. And to me, if we don't have integrity, there's not also a whole lot else. Grow or die. If we're not growing, we are certainly dying, and there's really no other two ways about it. Compassion, right? As medical professionals, you understand this because you would not be in the profession you are if you didn't have huge heart, and that's really a huge part of what we do. And vulnerability, right? The ability to stand up here and tell you I put on my underwear backwards. Just kidding. Vulnerability with healthy boundaries is what is very important, but we like to be able to be vulnerable and share our experiences and what's worked and what's not worked, right? Because we all sometimes grow a lot more from the things that don't work than the things that do work. And our mission: help practice owners live a better life with this whole thing of work-life integration and provide relief. I actually owned a business here in Holly Springs, a brick and mortar, for 6 years, a holistic health and fitness center. And I wished at the time that I had somebody that I could call and say, help, what do I do? How do I get to the next level? I feel like I've hit the ceiling. What's that next step? And hitting the ceiling, by the way, is very normal. Everybody hits the ceiling at some point when you're growing. And so I hope to be able to be a resource for you in a very positive way to help provide that relief. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So I know that I've had a chance to introduce myself, but I'd love to have a chance to introduce all of you. So if you're watching online, go ahead and pop in the chat and say who you are and what your company is. And we'll just quickly go around the room and have you all introduce yourself, because I just want to make sure that everybody had an opportunity. So let's start with you, Miss Margaret.
I'm Margaret Blythe. I am a small home therapy company. We work primarily in the Raleigh area, but we go wherever therapists have time, and usually they'll go out of there if they live out of the area. I have one in Durham, lived in Durham, who go to Durham, but primarily we're Raleigh.
Excellent. Thanks for coming today, Margaret.
I'm Christy Bryan. I'm an optometrist and owner of Carolina Vision here in White Springs. We do full spectrum eye care from 5 to 105, and I've been here in White Springs for 12 years.
Thanks for being here.
I'm Sarah Ferguson, and I'm with the Energy Village Physical Therapy. We've been here for 13 years, and we do outpatient physical therapy services.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Natasha and Thomas Jones, owners of Skyheart Home Care Services. We provide in-home care services for adults 18 and up. And this was developed out of the love and passion and memory of our daughter, Skylar, who passed away at 3 years old. So this is personal for us, and we want to ensure that everyone's receiving top level quality, heartwarming care, basically from our hearts to yours.
I love that. Thank you for being here. Terrific. So this is what we're going to cover off on today. So I like to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then tell you what I told you. And I find that that is a really healthy and good way to be able to set expectations. If you open up your the blue folder, and those of you at home, you should have received the workbook. And we are going to kind of work together as we go through this. The first thing is going to be essential leadership skills. So how you develop a unified and shared practice vision, which ensures everyone knows where you are going and how you plan to get there. So this is going to be really setting the foundation in the leadership skills 1. 2, burnout strategies. Anybody feeling burned out? Yes. Yes, very, very normal. We're going to talk about this thing called work-life integration. And yes, I did forget to change the balance word. So that's me being vulnerable, which means more family and playtime, consistency and accountability tactics, which means laser focus on commitments and higher per patient revenue, and team inspiration, how we appreciate, retain, and reward, which means less turnover and higher satisfaction. So are you guys ready to jump in? You guys are not ready. Are you guys ready to jump in? Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. And if you're watching online, go ahead and give us a thumbs up in the chat, although you might not be able to do that, just give us an exclamation point. I'm thinking with the thumbs up, we're like, that's Facebook, right? But I don't think you can do that on Zoom. All right, so part 1, essential leadership skills. We are going to be talking about core values, your core focus, and your niche, and what those things mean. So first part of this is, does your practice have soul? This thing we're calling soul. And soul really is this compilation of what we're calling your core focus and your core values. And when you have those two things in place, your company really has soul. And most companies are lacking this thing called soul because it's not been clearly defined. So core focus, let's talk about this first, okay? Now, this is having a clearly defined mission statement, your voice, or what Stephen Covey calls a hedgehog concept. It's what you want to do for people. And you use this to decide every new product, service, or decision. And it also helps you to avoid what we like to call shiny object syndrome. You guys familiar with shiny object syndrome, where it's like you focus on one thing and then suddenly it's like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that, right? And it should be obvious to everybody, both inside and outside of your company, of what your core focus is. It also is your company's sweet spot, okay? So I'm gonna show you guys what a core focus example is from my amazing client, Dr. Christy Tart-Bryan, who's here with Carolina Family Vision. And our company's mission is to improve the lives of people in our community by providing excellent eye care solutions. Now, if you don't have your core focus, your mission clearly defined, and it's something that's sort of hanging out there in the stratosphere, it's really important to actually write it down. Often we're like, oh, I know what it is, and you have it up here, but it doesn't necessarily exist anywhere on your website. It doesn't exist, you know, on handouts that maybe you give to patients. It doesn't exist with your staff that they know exactly what that is, and that's really, really important. So here is the core focus checklist. You want it to be stated in 3 to 7 words. It's written in simple language. It's big and it's bold. It has an aha effect. It comes from the heart. It's not about money. And it's bigger than a goal. So if you flip to the first page of your worksheet, if you want to take a moment and write down some notes around what your core focus is, and we'll just take 2 quick minutes now. It'll be, I think it's the second page of your workbook if you want to go ahead and write that down. So for those of you at home, if you want to just take 2 quick minutes and go ahead and open into your workbook and go ahead and write what your core focus would be.
Okay. Cool. Plan.
Excellent. So I'll just give you guys just another moment. And that's okay if it's not complete. This is something you can definitely continue to work on after you leave here today. The next piece of this is what we call core values. And we all have values that define who we are. They serve as a baseline for the decisions we make, the actions that we take, and the people we surround ourselves with. And just as you have values in your personal life, you also need to clearly define your guiding principles in your business. Your company values determine how you want to accomplish your core focus or mission, right? And they already exist in your business, right? So when I was talking to Tasha, you know, you were saying how it's heart focused, right? Like we are all about compassionate care. So for your guys' business, the core values that I already heard is compassion, right? And so that becomes a yardstick for when I'm hiring people, for example, right? One of the first things I'm going to look for when I'm hiring people is, do they have compassion, right? For my business, for example, integrity, servant leadership, right? Those are some of the things that are most important to me. In Dr. Christie's business, which we'll talk about in a second, family is really important in her business, right? So they should be very specific, but have a big picture feel. So here are some examples of real world core values: honesty and integrity, growth oriented, committed, encourages teamwork, compassion, accountability, strives for perfection, attention to detail. So the benefits of having these clearly defined and not just sort of floating out there, because as I said, they already exist. The problem is most companies have never taken the time to really clearly define them and then utilize them every single day. Every single member of your team should know what they are. Your patients should know what those are for you. It's what really defines you from everybody else in the marketplace, right? So it defines your culture. It actually starts to change the way you do business because again, you use these things as a yardstick for all the decisions that you make. It will attract like-minded people to your practice and it will actually repel the people that you don't want as well, which sometimes I think is actually more important. It weeds out employees and patients who are not a fit. I'm a little ahead of myself. And it dictates how you review, reward, and you recognize employees. So here's an example of very clearly defined core values. Family, quality care and products, compassionate service, and excellence. And I'm pretty sure that this is a screensaver over at Dr. Christie's practice. And Dr. Christie and her team utilize these consistently every single quarter when they do the quarterly meeting that they have. They use them in how they hire and develop staff. We use it for just about everything. So this is a really, really important core piece of your business. And it really helps you to be aligned with making decisions as you move forward into the future. So again, I'm going to just do a quick overview. So it's a small set of essential and timeless guiding principles. Again, 3 to 7 is the rule, a lot like how we looked at your core focus. They are what define your culture, and no two companies are going to be the same, okay? So let's take 2 quiet minutes, and why don't you write down what your core values are? For those of you at home, go ahead and write those down now too. We'll just take one more quiet minute, and then I'll encourage you to go ahead and continue working on this. Great. All right. The next and final part of section 1 is going to be what we call your niche, okay? What can you do better than anybody out there, okay? So here are some great examples. Orville Redenbacher, what do they do great? Popcorn. Walgreens, most convenient drugstore. TED, you know that one, right? Short, powerful talks. And Starbucks, the premier purveyor of the finest coffee in the world. And I would argue that Carolina Family Vision does eye care better than anybody else in the triangle locally. So, but what is your niche? What do you do better than anybody? So just take a moment and write down what your niche is. What do you do better than anybody else? This might be a little challenging to parse out at first, but to tease out. But let's take a quiet minute and write that down for yourself. Right. So moving on to the next section, burnout strategies. Goodness gracious, don't we all need these in our lives right now, right? Okay, so here are the things we're going to talk about in this section. One, having a growth or a fixed mindset. We're going to define burnout. We're going to talk about organizational or structural directed activities focusing on the work environment, and then individual directed activities focusing on you. Okay, so to begin this, I want to talk about this sort of bigger concept of having a growth or a fixed mindset. And we all have a combination of both, right? So a growth mindset is this belief that an individual's most basic abilities and skills can be developed through dedication and hard work, and that brains and talent are really just the starting point. Whereas a fixed mindset is the belief that an individual's basic abilities and skills, talents are fixed traits. So I spend a lot of time working on this idea of cultivating this growth mindset. And when I find myself in places where I find fixed, I look to find ways to be able to shift out of that, okay? So everybody, like I said, is really this mixture, right? But in order to really start to move into this idea of helping with burnout, we have to also move into this idea of a growth mindset, because otherwise we remain fixed in burnout, okay? So with a fixed mindset, the idea, this is intelligent as static, where we avoid challenges, we give up easily, we see effort as fruitless, we ignore feedback, and then we're threatened by other success. Whereas in a growth mindset, right, we embrace challenges, we persist despite obstacles, we see effort as a path to mastery, we learn from criticism, and we're inspired by other people's success. And I really love the idea of living in this realm as much as possible. Would you guys agree? Yeah, how about you guys at home? Growth or fixed mindset? Pop it in the chat for me. Okay, so where are you living? Growth or fixed? Growth allows you to get out of this thing called burnout, right? Okay, so let's define burnout first and foremost. Okay, so burnout is a form of exhaustion caused by constantly feeling swamped. That's the alligator. Get it? Swamp, alligator. Okay, maybe not. Okay. Couldn't help myself. So it's a result of excessive and prolonged emotional, physical, and mental stress. Ugh, feels yucky, right? Burnout happens when you're overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and you're unable to keep up with life and work's incessant demands. So you could be feeling overwhelmed, stressed out, like your plate is super full. And if you're like most medical professionals, you're probably feeling a little stuck with way too much on your plate. And you may be feeling like you could and should be accomplishing a heck of a lot more than you are. Yes? Yeah. So here are some solutions. Okay, so I want to first introduce this concept of working on top of your license. The other way I like to talk about it is working in your zone of genius, okay? And so it's interesting, I actually found this article, and it's a review on strategies to manage physician burnout. Now, obviously, I know we're not physicians here, but it still, I think, applies from a medical perspective. And it's from NCBI. And I'll be happy to give you guys a copy of this presentation. If you want to actually look up these articles, you're welcome to do that. So operating in your zone of genius or at the top of your license means you are practicing to the full extent of your education and training instead of spending time doing tasks that could be performed by somebody else. And I will admit, I am a recovering perfectionist. I am a recovering overachiever. I am a recovering people pleaser. This stuff is not easy for me. This is where the vulnerability part comes in. So all the things that I share with you guys is based upon my 15-year journey of figuring out strategies and solutions for me first to get out of overwhelm, get out of burnout, and then help lots and lots and lots of folks to do the same thing. So you are probably working too much. Yikes, right? So basically how to do that, right? So here is the actual practice of it. And in your workbook, I've written these things out for you, and I'm going to encourage you when you leave here to go and actually do this actual exercise. So how do you do it? All right, so the first part of it is I want you to pick the number of hours you want to actually work in your business or your practice each week. 40, 50, 60, whatever that number looks like for you, okay? And take into consideration self-care, okay? That is like number one. Did you guys ever hear when you're, you get on an airplane and they say, if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, you ain't gonna be no good for anybody else. So that's the first thing. You gotta make time for you. So when you're figuring out the number of hours, please put a few hours in there for yourself per week. Okay, that's one. Then figure out, for your family, for, other activities and stuff you need to do. Important to decide this number. The right number is the number you feel will allow you to be productive in your practice or your business and live an integrated life outside of work. Then I want you to compare this to the number of hours you're working now. Yikes, right? Okay, next part. I want you to track your time for the next several weeks, and I want you to track everything that you're doing, including one-time items and recurring tasks, big items and little items, okay? Now, this requires something called mindfulness, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. This requires you to be present in what you're doing, so not living in the past, not living in the future, so that you can have the awareness and remember to track it to begin with, okay? So this is really important because once you start being aware of what you're doing with your time, sometimes it can be quite surprising when you look at how much time you're spending doing things that other people can possibly do for you, okay? So then you're gonna sort the list into 4 quadrants, okay? We have love great, like good, don't like good, don't like not good. So which of these quadrants do you think people spend time in that burns them out the most? Yeah, right? That's doing the stuff that you're like, why did I start this in the first place? I hate doing this, right? You actually get to have a choice about whether you do it or not, okay? So the ultimate goal is to delegate everything in the bottom 2 quadrants, here and here, so that you can elevate your work to your unique abilities, okay? So this is what we're calling the zone of genius, or working at the top of your license, and focus on doing only the items in the top 2 quadrants. Can you imagine, I want you to think about in your practice, in your business, what do you love doing the most? Sarah, what do you love doing the most?
Well, it's changed over the years.
Yeah, I'm sure. Today, what is it today for you?
Today is actually more of the managing part.
Yeah. How much time per week do you get to spend doing that?
Very little.
Yeah. Imagine what your life would be like if we could shift that for you and you could spend more time in your zone of genius. Would that feel good? Yeah, absolutely. How about for you, Margaret? People time. Yeah.
I do like some volunteer stuff, once a week
Yeah.
in the communities that I'm at.
Yeah.
I teach them different things, and they come and they have so much fun. You know what I mean? So I think it's a great introduction to what we do.
Yeah.
But so in a way, it's a little bit of marketing type of benefit.
Yeah.
But it's just a weekly give back, and it just feels like playtime. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's the part that I enjoy the most.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm talking about the stuff that sets your soul on fire. The stuff where you're like, woo, like this is what I want to do in my practice. This is what I want to do in my business. And that's the goal, right? Dr. Christy, how about you?
The leadership part.
Yeah, and you're amazing at that. You do a great job with that. How about you guys back there, Miss Tasha?
I love being around people.
Yeah.
I love being around people and just figuring out ways like how can I help? Because I know what it's like to, on a personal level, what it's like to hurt and feel pain, to watch loved ones go through things. So it's like, how can we help?
Absolutely. I love that for you. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you, Miss Shanita, for putting that in there. Yeah. And then for you at home, let us know in the chat, what do you love doing most in your business? Would love to know more about that. So this is your homework, everybody, when you leave here. Okay. This is the homework. I want you to track your time for the next few weeks. And I want you to start figuring out what are those things that we can eventually delegate to somebody. Maybe we can bring in a part-time VA. Maybe we can bring in a part-time person to do something else. There's always solutions, right? There's always ways for us to do this. And the best part about it is that then you actually do start making more money, right? Because what happens is when you're living in that zone of genius and you're doing those things and you're delegating out the rest of the stuff, you have more time to go and make the most amount of money in that time that you actually have, right? Okay. Leaders shouldn't be spending their time on work that's easily delegated to others who can do it just as well or better. And this, for my recovering perfectionists, for overachievers, is very challenging. And I get that because I have been there. I totally feel it. But the great news is with standardizing things, when we actually document things in our business and we don't just run on this autopilot that we normally all run on, okay? That's another side note that's not in the presentation, but start making standard operating procedures for the things that you do. That way you actually aren't just always on autopilot doing it. And then you think to yourself, oh, nobody can ever do this because I always do it. Well, just because you've always done it this way doesn't mean you need to continue to do it. If it's not working, you get the opportunity to fix it. Isn't that amazing? So, and if you don't spend more time in the top two quadrants, this is when burnout really happens. You risk efficiency, profitability, effectiveness, and fun. We all need to be having more fun, right? Let's bring fun back. That's my new campaign. Bring fun back. Bring fun back. Yes, rediscover your passion. Y'all have your own businesses for a reason. Like, you would go work for somebody else, right? Like, you wouldn't do it otherwise. So if you're not having fun, if the passion's not there, you have to make a change, right? And sometimes that can be hard, but you can do it. I know you can. So taking a hard look at the items in the bottom two quadrants and identifying the things that free up most of your time if you can delegate them. And that is the key. Then the hardest part is actually doing it. Is actually doing it. So I'm going to challenge all of you. I want to hear from you in the next few weeks. After you do this, let me know what you're doing. I would love to hear that. Let me know what positive changes you're making. Okay, that would be awesome. Okay, so next piece of this, individual directed intervention. All right, let's move this out of the way. So, are you a perfectionist? Are you an overachiever, an A-type personality? Yes, I'm sure many of us are. So this is how we start to counteract that with this thing called mindfulness. So this is, we already just started talking about the strategies for like within the organization. Now this comes down to you. Okay, you're the business owner. You're the one who has to take control over you and do this personal work. So mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are, what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what is going on around us. A growth mindset is what allows us to shift into being mindful about what we're doing instead of just this automatic pilot thing, right? And I always go back to remembering being in school and the teacher asking a question. I was like, oh, I've got the answer. I've got the answer, right? I never learned how to hit that pause button between the stimulus and the response. And I am a hyper responder, hyper communicator. You send me a message. I used to be the person who was like, right? And then I'd be like afterwards, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have responded quite so quickly. Maybe I should have taken a moment. And so it's become a practice over time to learn to hit that pause button. And that's part of that growth mindset that we're talking about here. Yeah. So this is actually another presentation that I actually have done here at the co-working station. I did it for Dr. Christie's team, some of my other clients. But this is the 5-step process, and I just wanted to very quickly share it with you guys in terms of being able to achieve this growth mindset. So the first part of it is presence, doing everything you can to be more present in your everyday. I love Post-it notes, believe it or not, that remind me to stop and be present of what I'm doing. So they get stuck on my refrigerator, they get stuck on different places. I often set reminders in my phone to go off because it's a practice, right? It's not something that I tell you one time and you're great at it, right? Like it's over and over. Awareness without judgment. Who am I being? How am I showing up? How am I reacting? It's about being able to just be neutral. And one of the techniques that I teach all the time is this phrase that I use, which is called, isn't that interesting? You hear me say it quite often. Dr. Chris is like, yep, I hear it all the time. And I just go, oh, isn't that interesting? And that allows me to hit that pause button before I just react, right? Isn't that interesting? Okay, let me sort of see where I want to be before just responding. Vulnerability. My ability, how the wholehearted live. One of my favorite researchers, Brene Brown, talks about the concept of vulnerability. And that is so important because if we're not vulnerable, we can't grow, right? Vulnerability says that I'm open to learning. Looking at my beliefs. Did you know that most of your beliefs were actually planted in you before you were 7 years old? So before you're 7, and then you took all of those statements to be facts. So it's about being able to look at the things that you believe and decide whether they're still true for you. And then that's how we regulate emotionally. That's how we don't lose our you know what on people, right? That's how we're able to take a moment, take a breath, make a plan and try your best. Yes, that's from My Little Pony. My 6-year-old daughter says it all the time. I really like it. Just saying. From the past presentation I did last week, they're like, I think we like that part the best of everything. And I was like, great. Pretty silly, I know. So these are this individual directed interventions. So I wanted to introduce you guys to this. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I think it's really interesting. And this is this thing called MBSR. And in this particular article from the National Library of Medicine, they talk about how this is one of the interventions that they actually suggest. And it's called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And it's an 8-week behavioral program and an educational course that offers meditation techniques, daily activities, communications, body scanning, breathing techniques, simple yoga postures. They offer it at Duke. They probably offer some of these things online. This is an awesome burnout strategy to be able to learn and incorporate in your daily life. Just additional techniques to be able to keep learning and growing. So this whole MBSR thing is that it's based on non-judging, non-striving, acceptance, letting go, what we call having a beginner's mind, patience, trust. And the evidence shows that it can mitigate stress, reduce burnout, and improve empathy skills among medical professionals. So if not MBSR, my suggestion is get more curious about mindfulness. And curiosity is a wonderful technique that I encourage all of my clients to use around this concept of mindfulness. And I really feel like you get kind of steered in the right direction for whatever it is that you might want to be focusing on. So Google mindfulness and see what pops up for you. See where you're guided to. If an 8-week program feels overwhelming, I get that. But there's definitely different things that you can start incorporating. That might be a meditation. That might be taking 2 or 3 quiet minutes to just quiet your mind, stuff like that. The other article that I thought was really interesting on strategies to manage burnout was professional coaching. Imagine that. So truly though, they say it's another significant way to help prevent burnout. And, it's often been used by executives in corporate businesses, and it's really made its way into the medical profession more and more. And basically it's helping clients fix thoughts and negating self-defeating inner dialogue by helping to question automatic thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, and being able to differentiate between facts, assumptions, interpretations. And a lot of what I do is really helping organizations as a fractional COO, or what we call integrator, to be able to not only take this mindfulness piece, but the actual business of everyday running and kind of put them together. I found that a lot of business systems out there sort of miss the mindfulness piece. They don't address that. And as a small business owner, if you're not addressing what's up here, you're going to find that you're probably not going to get as much success, in my opinion. So burnout strategies wrap up. Growth or fixed mindset, working at the top of your license or your zone of genius, having that 5-step process to the growth mindset, and then incorporating some kind of mindfulness in your business. You guys doing okay? Yes, this is good. Good, excellent. You guys at home, if you're doing okay, go ahead and give me like an exclamation point in the chat so we know that you guys are still doing okay. All right, awesome. This is the next part. Consistency and accountability. Okay, so here's the 4 things we're going to talk about. And I cannot stress enough the importance of doing these things. It has been a game changer for my clients. Dr. Christie could probably tell you, since we started doing this in her business, there's been some pretty extraordinary changes and wonderful things. So annual planning, scorecard, priorities, and meetings. So let's talk first about annual planning. So the great news is that we're coming to the end of the year. There's less than 100 days till the new year. I think we're probably around 70 or 80 at this point. And so I want you guys to think about doing your annual planning in the next couple of weeks. And things to include, I want you to think about over the next year, if we were to come back to this room a year from now, what would your revenue goal be? What would your profit goal be? What are your, we call them KPIs or key performance indicators. And I'll talk about that a little bit more under our scorecard. And what are your overall goals or priorities for the year? I'm not talking about having 15 of those. 3 to 5 big chunky things, okay? Now, a lot of business systems want you to look 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. I don't know about y'all, but for me, that is very challenging. And I find that for most business owners, that's really, really hard to do, right? If you're a $50 million a year business, sure, that makes sense. You got stockholders and stuff. But for most small business owners, looking a year out from now, especially in the climate that we're existing in, it's easiest to do that. So set that revenue goal. Is it 200,000? Is it 500,000? Is it $1 million? Is it 4 million? What does that look like in the next year? Okay, so that's the first thing. When I work with my clients, that's always one of the first things I like to establish. What is that baseline for ROI? Part one, okay? The next part of it is development of what we call a scorecard, okay? And I have seen this, it literally changes the face of your business, okay? So a scorecard typically has 10 to 15 measurables that you're tracking at any given time. Of the 10 to 15, maybe 1 to 3 will really be the key numbers that drive your business. Identifying the right numbers is a process that does take some discovery. So with Dr. Christie and Carolina Family Vision, we've been doing this now for about 1.5 years or so, and we still are adding to the scorecard. Like when we figure out different things, we're like, oh, we should track that now. So it's kind of an evolving thing. So making decisions based on data and not emotions, right? So that's how we really can come from a place of growth and strength. And you want to look at this every single week. There's one person in your business who should be responsible for updating the numbers every single week. And you go over these numbers in your weekly leadership meeting, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The reason you do this, okay, and this is not like a full P&L, okay? This doesn't have every single thing on it. It's gonna have like, this is just an example, right? So weekly revenue, cash balance, sales calls, meetings, proposals. It's a snapshot to where your business is. And if you've ever been in that position where you're waiting and waiting for the CPA to get you the P&L, you know that it's a very reactive place to be rather than proactive, right? So if I know, let's say my revenue goal for the month is $30,000, and let's say I'm in week 1 and I've only brought in $2,000. Well, that's a problem. So I know I need 28 more. So if I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to generate the revenue that I need to make this month? Okay, well, maybe we need to increase the number of sales calls. Maybe we need to meet with more people. Maybe we need to go back to proposals that haven't closed yet. It puts you in a position of strength because now you're working proactively rather than reactively. And that P&L that you get next quarter that told you how you did 3 months ago, not helpful, right? Not helpful. Doesn't put you in a place of power. And knowing your numbers backwards and forwards is 100% the key to success in your business. Without a doubt, okay? It creates clarity, it creates commitment, it helps you to solve problems faster, it produces results. And the way that I typically work with my clients is the first usually like 6 weeks or so when I work with you, we establish the leadership numbers. And then after that next period of time, then we start to roll it out to the rest of the organization. And then all of your departments start to get their measurables. And then we track everything on a spreadsheet. And then that way they have a level of accountability. And numbers create this really great way to tell a story that there's no emotion involved in it. I don't get, like, for an employee, if I'm trying to figure out your performance, you know, quarterly, well, I take the emotion out of it, right? Like, how did you perform? Like right here. So it really creates a position of power, right? So this is from Dr. Christie's team. Now, obviously, we don't show you numbers because that's confidential, but these are just some of the things that they track in their business, right? So gross revenue, how many exams, what's the revenue per patient, how many frames did we sell, how many contact lens fittings, boxes, annual supplies, etc. So Dr. Christie, how has this been for you in your business?
I think the biggest thing is taking emotion out of it. The bigger your team is, the more emotional everyone can be about different decisions. And I'm a big nerd. I love the numbers because I can say, you know, I don't have to have my office manager say, well, I think this one's doing okay on their contact lenses, but they have all these excuses or this thing, or this one's fantastic at it because they're the favorite. No, I have like actual numbers to say, well, no, this person did this, had this performance versus this performance. So,
Yeah.
That's part for me. And then for secondarily for the staff, giving them accountability. I think that it gives them more purpose, more cause and effect. Okay, I do this and it actually affects somehow, you know, the success of the business and how that reflects back on them is been really important for my staff.
Yeah. And you've done a really great job of maintaining this. You put the numbers in every single week. You've figured out how to do the formulas to make things go different places. It's been extraordinary, and I am grateful for the opportunity.
It started out
Yep.
very simple.
It did.
Very simple.
Yep, very
You don't
simple.
have to-
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as overwhelming. You can track 3 or 4 things.
Yep.
But you, just as an owner, looking at that weekly, it changes your whole perspective on how you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much time to spend looking at your data?
I spent about 20 minutes putting it all together on Tuesday night.
Yep.
And then we have an hour and a half consecutive.
Yeah.
Talk about it, but I'd say the numbers is only a small portion. Of
Yeah.
that.
And they also have, yeah, they have a really robust project management system as well. So if you don't have a project management system where you actually have that practice management, thank
So
you.
just say theirs is probably also practice.
Pardon me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Exactly. So a practice management system in place where you can pull reports and stuff. That's sort of the baseline. So that way you have all that, you know, accessible to you. So the next piece of this is establishing quarterly priorities. Okay. So most of us do not have the ability to go beyond 90 days, right? So we live in a 90-day world when I'm working with clients, and I'd encourage you to think about living in a 90-day world as well. So we just started the 4th quarter, right? So we've got October, November, December. So right now, we want to be able to say, okay, what are the rocks or the biggest priorities that we want to accomplish this quarter, right? And it's 3 to 7 of the most important things that you want to accomplish. And again, this is what allows you to help avoid squirrel and the shiny object syndrome. So these are the 7 things, and these are the highest priority projects and tasks, right? So those are the big rocks. So for example, if we have this lovely little jar, we have to put the big rocks in first, because if we just fill it with little rocks, which are urgent or important priority projects and tasks, or sand, unimportant projects and tasks, there is no room left, right? So we have to think, what are these big chunky things that we want to accomplish? And it probably is going to take you 2 to 3 months to get those things done. Company rocks are the priorities for the company. Departmental rocks are priorities for the department, and individual rocks are priorities for you or for another individual. So if you have not set rocks yet for this quarter, it's a great time to do that, right? So if you do nothing else coming out of here today, as a little golden nugget, think about what are the 3 to 7 most important things for you to get accomplished before the end of the year, okay? So does this sound like your company's meetings? Distractions, they're sporadic, they're never focused, they're filled with unnecessary people. Yes, maybe. Meetings are a necessary part of communication and problem solving for every business, but they aren't always as productive as they should be. And I would argue that most meetings are not productive at all. Okay. Most employees attend 62 meetings per month and spend 31 hours in unproductive meetings. Think about how much money that is costing you when you have these meetings that don't have a set agenda, that don't actually move the business forward, right? It can cost your company a lot of money. So here are 6 signs that you're having ineffective meetings. So you feel like you have been trying to get the same thing done for long periods of time, but with little traction. I think I've heard some people in here already say, I've got vision. Sometimes it's really hard for me to actually get the people who are working with me to do the things that I have in my vision, yeah? Meetings lack an agenda or stated purpose. They lack leadership. They become lectures. They don't produce actionable items. You don't solicit feedback on the meetings. These are all ways of knowing that your meetings are not being effective. Okay, so the solution is what we do, and it's called a weekly on the business meeting, OTB. So it's a 90-minute check-in meeting with the leadership team. Okay, attendees develop a strategy that you can hold yourselves and your team accountable to. We want this meeting to be rated a 10 by employees on a scale of 1 to 10 for productivity and effectiveness. So it's designed to keep the leadership team creating a consistent rhythm that keeps the company focused on the vision. So these meetings are principally dedicated to solve issues and create an issues list of items that require attention. They're always 90 minutes in length. They are always on the same day and the same time every week. They always start and they end on time, no excuses. This is where consistency and accountability meet, hit the road, and where real positive change happens, okay? It allows you to identify problems and focus on solving them. It keeps you organized, on task, and encourages you to manage and handle conflicts and resolutions. This thing is the game changer for your business. So here is the on the business meeting agenda that you want to follow. And I did put that in your workbook for you as well. So the first thing that we do is we go around and we share one good thing personally and one good thing from the business. This is what helps us to start to make that shift from working in the business to working on the business. Exactly. We do a quarterly priority review, right? Those rocks. And we simply say, are we on track or are we off track? If we're off track, we're going to drop it down into our opportunities for improvement. Next, we're going to go through our key performance indicators. We're going to look at that scorecard and the data and see what's happening there. We'll share any news or headlines. That's also an opportunity to call out and appreciate people on the team, set up how you want to appreciate those people. Review of assigned weekly tasks per person. We have our opportunities for improvement where we'll articulate what's going on. We'll prioritize what we need to talk about. We'll discuss it, and then we'll solve, right? And then issues actually get solved once and for all, okay? And then we conclude, and then we review the assigned tasks. That is the 90-minute meeting every single week that you do, okay? So wrapping this section up, and then I'm gonna move really quickly through our final section. Annual planning, scorecard, priorities, meetings. You start doing this in your business, you are gonna have a game changer for sure, okay? So finally, the last section is team inspiration. So how you appreciate, retain, and reward. So why is employee recognition important? So productivity, that's one. Employee recognition supercharges productivity. Humans have an innate need to be seen and recognize praise, and employee recognition does that. So wouldn't you work harder if you were publicly recognized every time you accomplished a goal, right? So I want you to think about your own self and how you want to be rewarded. It helps with turnover and retention. And research has shown time and time again, people who feel valued are less likely to leave. And especially in today's climate, we got to retain the good people, have to. And when you genuinely appreciate employees for their contributions, they're more likely to stay with you, okay? Recognized employees are more engaged employees. When they feel acknowledged and appreciated, they're more likely to develop mental and emotional connections. And finally, company culture, right? So besides incentivizing achievement, employee recognition gives employers the ability to reinforce behaviors that you find valuable, and it showcases behaviors that make the organization successful. So for example, recognizing an employee for volunteering for a local nonprofit signals to other employees that your organization values community responsibility, right? Okay. Come on. Why are you not moving? Having a technical issue, ladies and gentlemen. Give me one moment to see what's happening here. Hi, guys. 1 second. Let me go back to share my screen again. Having a little issue here. All right, hold on. And play from current slide. Yay, working. Okay. Employees need more recognition. So there was a really cool recognition in the workplace study done, and 52.5% of respondents want to receive more recognition from their immediate manager or supervisor. So that's a pretty big number. 41% want to receive more recognition from immediate coworkers, okay? So, but is there a thing as too much recognition? The simple answer is yes. Leaders, managers, and peers need to be intentional with recognition and gradually evolve the way in which they show gratitude for accomplishments in the workplace. We have to be considerate, authentic, deliberate, and timely with recognition, okay? So despite employees needing and asking for recognition for their accomplishments at work, it's actually usually not really happening. We forget to do it, okay? So the most effective recognition comes from relationships, and relationships are built on expectations, okay? Employees need to know what their organization expects, and leadership needs to know what their employees expect, okay? And when you start rolling out these meetings, by the way, to different departments, you'll be able to start to learn more of that and maybe even setting a company rock for doing more appreciation. If managers lack resources to measure and develop these expectations, then reward programs come off as impersonal and insincere. And oftentimes I think I've seen where a lot of times people start this in their organizations and then it gets dropped and they forget to continue doing it. So we want to make sure that the recognition is meaningful, and that's really important too. So recognition and improving culture. So recognition efforts often fall under the objective of improving culture, okay? Culture is the sum total of experience your organization provides, and it shapes your employees' expectations. So to reap all the benefits of recognition and prevent a shortage of employee recognition, it has to become a part of day-to-day life. It becomes a part of the culture of your organization. So here are 6 ways to create a sustainable culture of recognition. So the first part is defining your mission and values, as we discussed in step 1. Then actually aligning the operations with your values, okay? Communicate regularly about performance, right? So with performance, we encourage having what we call quarterly conversation, which is not a review, but it's just an opportunity to talk about things versus just once a year when we review people. Determine how your staff wants to be appreciated. And shout out to Dr. Christie. She had all of her team do the love languages of appreciation quiz and find out how her staff likes to be appreciated. And their culture is amazing. I mean, from gift cards to recognition in the newsletter, to birthdays, to beach trips. They really do a really wonderful job. And I think that that's why they have such great retention. I mean, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, people have been with their organization. So sincerely recognizing staff is really important, making sure that it feels authentic, and then recognizing both success but also improvement, okay? So it's really important that we also reward when we see people just improving, okay? So finally, dun, da, 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 we come to the end. So essential leadership skills, we talked about that. So this unified and shared practice vision. So that was our core focus. That was our core values. That was our niche, making sure that we're really super clear on what those things are and that everybody in our organization, as well as our patients, know what that is. Burnout strategies. We talked about mindfulness. We talked about the delegate and elevate and how we can really work on this idea of life work integration, okay? Consistency and accountability tactics. We talked about having annual planning, having weekly meetings, what those meetings look like, setting priorities. And finally, the team inspiration, how we look at starting to create a culture of appreciation so that we can retain people. And that, my friends, is with 2 minutes to spare. That is the presentation. Do we have any questions, or would anybody like to share a golden nugget of something that was sort of an aha moment for you? And out there in digital world, if you'd like to pop it in the chat, we'd love to hear from you too. So if anybody like to share anything? No, I bamboozled you all. Okay, that's okay, no problem. So really quick, at the back of your workbook, there's a little bit more information about how I work with clients. I do offer a complimentary consultation if anybody was interested in more information. Always happy to be of assistance to you. And here is my contact information. I would really love, regardless of whether it makes sense for us to work together, keep in touch with me. Let me know how things are going. If any of these things are working for you. I know nobody wanted to really share out loud today, but I certainly would love your feedback to know if this was an effective presentation for you. And I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for being here. And a round of applause for you who are in the ring doing the hard work. Y'all are awesome. So thank you so much for coming out today. Yay. Okay, let me see if I'll close this down. Thanks for coming, you guys. Hi, Nancy.
Wonderful, wonderful. I just wonder if you could put your contact information up again
Yes,
so I can get that and do what I need to do with that.
I will be happy to.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. My pleasure. I'm
Bye-bye.
Yay.
So I will email the presentation out to you all.
Okay. Yeah, I think I emailed it to you yesterday, right? Yes, so feel free. Yeah.
He